Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in into Life Without Limits tonight. I'm your host, Thomas Russell, or Tom Russell, however you want to call me. I know you're going to enjoy and hopefully learn from today's amazing guest. His name is Larry Thode, and I will talk more about Larry shortly. But before we get started, I wanted to thank everyone who's become part of our life-changing work, and your support is what helps the show stay on the air. And for those who'd like to join, you can always go to my website, lifewithoutlimitshow.com, and become an official fan, and that's lifewithoutlimits.com. And if you end up watching my show on YouTube, which I'm going to post after the show's over with, you're going to be able to see the T-shirt that I have. It says "Life Without Limits." I am really proud of being able to show people that the shirt that I have, because I think it just exemplifies what my show is about. And hopefully you can do that by subscribing to my YouTube channel. So hold on here. Work. As I said, I want to talk about my guest tonight. But before I introduce Larry, because we're going to talk about him being a parent and his young boy. But I know with my life, I've been married, going on almost 32 years. We have not had the blessings to have any children. However, I've known people who have had children. And I understand the inherent challenges that the parents have on a daily basis, a yearly basis. Every day there's something going on with kids. And I couldn't even begin to try to tell people how to parent. But I'm absolutely amazed about the resilience parents have and the challenges that are come across them. You know, a lot of parents have their children are healthy and they see these things going on in their life that they're able to help mold their kids, and the kids jump in and they feel like they're accomplishing something, and all these things that parents can be really proud of, and each parent is proud of their kids for all variety of different things. But with Larry's story that we're going to be talking about, it's important to know how becoming a parent can literally change your life. And Larry's going to be talking about that. Larry's an old friend of mine. He's actually, we went to grade school together, and I'm 59 years old, and Larry just turned 59 recently, which means that we are older than dirt. So it just means that we've experienced life, and I've had an enjoyable time with Larry when we were going to school, and we're not going to go over all the things that we did. Uh, that's another story. It would take a long time, right, Larry?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Larry's been married 29 years. He has 3 children and 6 grandchildren, and he's a managing director at J.P. Morgan. And he still gardens. And I forgot about this, and Larry just reminded me. Larry is an avid fan of the Chicago Cubs, and if we had the time, we would talk about Chicago Cubs history all night long. But we're not going to do that. I don't want to bore all the people. So having said all that and all the introductions and everything, Larry, thanks a lot for coming on my show.
Well, Tom, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on this show, and you're doing such great work here. So I'm a little nervous, but I'll give it my best shot.
Oh, please. I mean, we've talked for forever, so I think it's just you and me talking, nobody else. So we talked about parenting and everything, but I knew you when you were in school. You were focused. You knew what you wanted to do. Maybe not totally career wise, but I mean you had high expectations about yourself. Um, when you went to college, what were your expectations?
Well, Tom, you and I grew up in a small town that was pretty poor,
Yeah.
and most people had pretty menial jobs. And so my intention was to get that degree, first person in my family to get it, and then get in a job where I could wear a tie every day, get in a job where I didn't have to work outside every day. And elevate myself higher than what my family had done. That was kind of like my job. And so I kind of, I went into college, Tom, thinking, oh, I'm going to have a fun major. And then I realized I had to pay the bills and switched to a business major. And so here I'm down at IU, and I switched because they got a great business school, and because it all became about figuring out a way to make my mark in the business world. That was what I was after. That's what I wanted to do.
So you were really career driven, right? Rather than,
I never thought about children. I never really wanted kids. I wanted to focus on my career. It was the focal point of my life. As soon as I left college, I went down to Louisiana and dedicated myself to that first job. My highlight at the time, one of the biggest things was to hit a vice president's title by the time I was 30. I mean, Tom, you came down to visit me, and
yeah,
I probably talked about that with you for 2 hours one day. I mean, it was
yeah.
like the most important thing in the world. So I was very focused on how can I continue to do better? How can I move forward? How can I have a better title, have more money? It was all about career.
Yeah, that's what I remember about you when I went to visit you. But you know what? But what I found out, what I discovered later on, because after we stayed connected off and on, but I lost track of you. And then when you got married, you married into a family with kids. How did that go around in your mind? Going into marriage with kids.
Well, I hit the jackpot. I married an incredible woman from Louisiana, true Louisiana girl, incredibly kind, incredibly wonderful, an incredibly good cook, hence, the weight that I carry. But, and she brought to the marriage 2 kids. And Tom, I had never held a baby. I never changed a diaper. Thank goodness these kids were older, but I didn't have a clue. And she was in charge of kids, and I was in charge of finances and career. We kind of separated our duties. Um, Now I was fortunate; they're great kids, and they've grown. And thanks to her, they've grown up. They're incredible human beings. Our son is a nuclear engineer. Our daughter is an executive director at a big company in the procurement space. They both have loving families and all girls. I got 6 granddaughters, Tom, all girls, not a boy in the lot. Unlike your clan, your brothers all boys.
Yeah.
But very fortunate. But I moved that poor family around, I think 8 times, Tom, all because of career. I mean, we moved. That's probably why you lost track of me. I mean, we moved. All they had to do was say it's a promotion. No one will do this job. Thode, will you go do it? And I would say, give me more money, and I'd go do it. And they moved like troopers and stuck with me. And but I'm very proud of those 2 kids. They've done remarkable things with their lives.
So you had the 2 girls. What you said they were 7 and 9, right?
It was a boy and a girl, Perry and Christy. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were 7 and 9. So you had those kids up until they pretty much graduated, and then I think 19 years ago, something happened that totally changed your life. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the kids. I was relatively young, and the kids were on their own, so we're empty nesters. Again, I'm focused on my career and thinking, all right, kid things behind me. It's time to focus on what I want in the world, and even more so than I had. And what happened is Kay's brother, who had a lifelong drug problem, was in jails in Brazil and jails in Japan, became homeless due to his drug problem, and he lived in Texas. He hooked up with a young lady who was thrown out of her house at 17. She had 3 children by the time she was 17. She was homeless and had a drug problem as well, and they had a child. And that was Parker. And Parker's first night away from the hospital was spent in a homeless shelter, if you can imagine that.
I can't.
And so both of his parents are homeless. Both of his parents have drug problems. I don't know if he was a week old. He was living in a homeless shelter, and Kay's mother, who I had not met, Tom. I had not, after all the, at that point in my life, I had never met her, but I
Mm.
had heard stories about what a horrible mother and person she was. And I had passed judgment on that woman, and I wouldn't throw water on her if she was on fire.
Mm.
But she somehow found the courage to take Parker and his mother in, but then kicked his mother out after about 3 days because caught the mother abusing Parker and pinching him and hitting him.
Mm.
And then my wife, being the saint and angel that she is, made the acquisition of Parker her number one life goal. And so I should have known then, if Kay set her mind to it, that my life was going to be changed, but it hadn't quite hit me yet. But she spent 2 years trying to get him. And she did, I mean, she worked on it for years, and she got family members involved. She got state people involved. And then finally, Christy, our daughter, and Kay went down and just somehow pulled off a miracle. And Kay brought this little boy home. He was 2 years old at the time. And brought in, again, I'd never held a baby. I never changed a diaper. I hadn't a clue. And she brings this little guy home, and he reaches out and hangs on to me like a pet raccoon.
Mm.
And but even then, I wasn't necessarily paying attention like I should. You and I have talked about this. I had kind of gotten away from the way I was raised, and I didn't really think much about my religious life, and I believe that God talks to us, we just don't listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think God was talking to me by sending this little boy to me, and I didn't really listen. The adoption of Parker was handled through my firm, and it was a way for me to appear a little more human at the firm.
Oh.
And
You did,
my poor wife.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just what you said there. So you did it for different ulterior motives. I mean, not the whole thing, but that was part of the motive, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was, my true colors at the time, were showing. And poor Kay, she had to, and when we got Parker, I guess I should back up and say that he was diagnosed as being a feral child. That's how bad his situation was. At 2 years old, he was still on liquid foods. He couldn't speak. The only time he got a bath was like in a dishpan. He'd never been in a tub. It was a scene out of a movie. I mean, he couldn't do anything. And he wouldn't sleep. And Kay had to deal with that. And I went and found another bedroom and slept so I could go to work, because got to go to work.
Mm.
And she was battling that for, I think a good 6 months. She was taking him to doctor, and they kept saying, give it time, give it time. And then we moved down to Monroe, Louisiana, of all places.
Mm.
Took Parker with us. And she took him to a doctor down there. And one thing about Parker, he attracts angels. He finds good people. He brought you and me back together. He brings good people together.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Camphor down there, an angel, stopped the visit and said, I'm going to tell my other patients I'm going to be late. And he just spent an hour with Kay checking Parker over. And he said, you know what? Something's not right. And she goes, I knew it, but no other doctor would agree. And he said, I'm going to send you to this guy. He's a bad doctor. Tell me you don't like him so I can send you to Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas, of all places, 3 hours away. They've got better doctors. So here we are. And I don't know what happened, Tom. I think that during this time, for some reason, the good Lord interfered and sent me with them. And here I am, because I never went to these doctor appointments. I had work to do. So I went up to Little Rock with Kay and with Parker, and they were evaluating him. It was a lot of evaluations because it was a complicated case. And we're sitting up there, and I was sitting next to a man, a young fella, because I was an old guy even then, and his little boy had autism, and he was roaming around in the play space. And I just nodded, and I saw Parker interact with that little boy. And Tom, I swear it was as if you had introduced two people from Mars.
Mm.
It was almost as if they were like, holy cow, there's another person like me in the world. And they looked at each other and they handed each other toys and they actually interacted a little bit. And I didn't need the doctor to tell me. I knew. I knew at that point that Parker had autism. And I just, my wife kids me this. I sat there and cried. I mean, it was, because I finally hit something, Tom, that I couldn't fix. I couldn't work my way out of it. I couldn't buy an answer. I couldn't run from it. There was no way to fix it. I knew that this was bigger than what I could handle. I mean, I thought that I could teach Parker to play baseball. I thought I would take him to baseball games. I was thinking all the things that I could do, and that was all gone in a second. And then I'm thinking, I don't know anything about this. I've never been around people with disabilities. I don't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that person. I'm not the kind of person that deals with any of that. And I just, it was mind blowing. And we get back to Baton Rouge or to Monroe. And the next day I go, my church had a men's group. And I barged in on these three souls. These guys, there's a special place in heaven for them. Because here comes this crazy Thode guy who, is saying, I need to find God quickly because I need strength to deal with this. And these poor guys had to deal with me and trying to get me back on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
I feel sorry to them to this day. But that's when it all changed. I mean, my whole life changed that day. And from that day on, we lived there, Tom, for almost 9 years. I turned down promotions. I stopped traveling. And autism became our life, and trying to figure out what to do for Parker from that point. And the minute, Tom, I stopped focusing everything on business and my own personal well-being, when I started thinking about Parker, you'd be amazed how much smarter I came. You'd be amazed the number of nice people that are out there, how negative thoughts turn to positive thoughts, how it became more important to go to these doctor's appointments. It became more important to read books about autism and special needs. It became more important to do lots of things than what I had spent my time on. So it was truly, I mean, people tell Kay and I all the time, oh, you guys, it's just amazing. You had it set and you brought him into your life and you've done, and they just don't get that he's done more for me than I've ever done for him. I'd much rather be the Larry I am today than the Larry I was before he came into our life.
Was it, I don't want to say you felt, like when I started talking about at the beginning of the show was, a lot of parents have their kids that grow up healthy and all they accomplish a lot of different things. But you knew almost immediately that was not going to happen based on what the doctor said, right? Because, didn't you say that one of the doctors said he should be institutionalized, right?
Yeah, there was the one doctor that Dr. Canfer warned us about said when he visited Parker, he told Kay, actually, I wasn't there, don't waste your time. Don't try to teach him to read. Don't put him in school. Best thing is put him in an institution so you can live your life. You just adopted him, put him in a home and call it a day and move on, because they never thought. And Kay often wants to take Parker back there and have an aha moment with the doctor. But,
yeah.
Parker has impacted just unbelievable numbers of people's lives. And if we could all look at the world the way Parker does, I think half of our problems would go away.
Now, what level of, I can't think of the word, I'm talking about. What level is he at? Because, the autism spectrum varies so different ways. Where does he rate?
Parker is, I would say low functioning. He has speech. He can talk. Um, and he's completed high school. But he'll always have to live with us. He can't adjust his shower water to the right temperature. He can't keep himself tidy after he goes to the bathroom. He couldn't really cook more than just a simple microwaved issue. His IQ's in the 60s. Uh, he's 6'5", 260 pounds.
Oh my word. He's 19, right?
Yeah, he's 19 now. I'm telling you, when you see him, you think that he should be playing offensive guard for Notre Dame or IU. I mean, he's just got an offensive lineman's build. But he's an incredibly sweet kid. And like I said, people that get to know him are very, very attached to him. And I could tell you lots of stories of people that have experienced his youthful, innocent view of the world and find it incredibly enlightening and helpful. I mean,
well, yeah. Well, go ahead and tell me. Tell me some of those.
Well, for one of the examples is that Parker doesn't tell a lie. So, I mean, imagine a world where your word still meant something, where every politician and every lawyer and everybody, their word meant something, and so people love that refreshing honesty, and they know that Parker's not going to make something up. There's no ulterior motive. When he was younger, there was one of the kids went missing in a class, and the teacher said, anyone see him? And Parker said around front, and the kid said to the back, but she followed Parker because she told us, Parker doesn't lie. If Parker says it's around front, he's around front. And sure enough, that's where he was. But Parker's honesty is just incredibly refreshing. The other thing that Parker thinks that he doesn't really see color. I have two biracial granddaughters, and Ava, who's Christy's oldest, had spent a lot of time with us, and her and Parker kind of grew up together. And they just listen to those two. It's just incredible. I mean, Avi's got some special shampoo, and you'll hear him in the bathroom, and Parker's like, Avi, can I use your shampoo? And she's like, no, Parker, it's for black people's hair. And big silence. And then Parker says, I think there's a black hair in my head.
Yeah.
And she looked at him, and she's so sweet. And she's like, okay, Park, you can use just a little. But I mean, he doesn't. And we'll go through a Dairy Queen, and there'll be one of these high school girls that he went with, and she'll just stand there for a minute with his Blizzard, and she's like, Parker. And you look at her and she goes, aren't you going to say hi? And you'll say hi. And she says, I went to school with him. But everybody knows Parker. I mean, everybody in this whole little town we live in knows who he is. They look out for him. They know that he's not, even though he's 6'5", that there's not a mean bone in his body, and there's nothing to be afraid of and nothing to be worried about. He's a kind soul. This weekend, Memorial Day, we're having a crawfish boil, and we're bringing family up from Virginia and Pennsylvania and Louisiana and all over. And it's because of Parker. Parker insists that we do this once a year. He wants the entire family together, and he just, and people do it. Even if they're not getting along, they all show up and hang out for Parker because he wants everybody to be here. He's the kind of person that also thinks that you should only do what you like and what you're passionate about. Doesn't understand why you waste time doing stuff you don't like, And, as adults, we shake our hands, but just our heads, but, just think if we could all spend more time on what we love, how many more great books would there be? How many more great paintings would there be? If we could all just throw away some of the nonsense we deal with and spend more time on our passions. But he's an interesting guy. He really is.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Larry, but let's go back to the school because I mean, when uh, you had to make a decision what kind of school he was going to be able to attend. How'd you handle that?
Oh, Tom, schools have been a problem. It's actually why we're up in Ohio, to be honest with you. We were in Monroe, Louisiana. We put him in the public school, and it was a nightmare. The public schools down there struggled just with typical kids. And actually, their philosophy of when he acted up was to put him in a closet. Yeah,
That's crazy.
it's a good thing it was a small town and we knew the sheriff. I probably would have had to bail my wife out. But we pulled him from school immediately. Then and the teacher showed up at our house. Um, but she pulled him out. We tried our church. Our church had a school. Um, and they knew the situation. And, unfortunately they weren't equipped. And I'll never forget our own church saying he can't come to school here. But yet there are still angels. We showed up to pick him up, and his teacher, she was holding him in her lap, and she was crying and saying, I'm sorry, I wanted to keep him, but they won't let me. And so we had to pull him out of that school. And then we found another angel, Tom. There's a place down there called the Autism Learning Center. Donna Strong and her family have dedicated their lives to helping kids with autism. And we put him in that school. Very expensive school, but a wonderful place. And another angel named Kate Brown Bellamy taught Parker to read. She was an English lit major. She wasn't a teacher. She loved literature. She's from Atlanta, Georgia, and she taught this kid Parker's got an incredible memory, and she figured out how to use that memory and teach Parker to read, which in itself is a miracle. And so he was at the Autism Learning Center. And then another miracle, we went to a place called Quest Learning Tech, a school for kids with dyslexia. Donna Underwood is the administrator down there. And this school is a private school in Monroe, just for kids that have learning disabilities and dyslexia. And between begging, crying, agreeing to be a board member, donating as much money as I could, they agreed to try it. They took him a couple hours a day. And then finally, I think it was enough tears, and Kay donated some quilts for them to auction off, and they took him every day. And before long, and this is another magic of Parker. Because I was on that board, Tom, of that school, and I would have never done that if it wasn't for Parker. I'm on the board of directors for this wonderful school, and the state of Louisiana introduces school choice. And so now you've got poor kids in northern Louisiana that are underserved by the public school system with a chance to go to a school that specializes in their disability. And I was able, as a board member, to help vote for that and encourage people to do that. And it happened. And to see those kids and their parents come to that school and succeed, learn to read, learn to do math, get in a position to get their diplomas when they were failing because the public school couldn't help them. I mean, I would have never experienced that if it wasn't for Parker. And it's an incredible thing. Of all the things that I've done, that little school, being on that board, I feel like I made a huge difference, and I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for Parker. But he went to that school, and eventually he aged out, and so we had to go somewhere. And so Chase, a great company. I don't mean to give my company a shout out on your show, but
that's okay.
They let me move up. They say, hey, where do you want to go? And I said, Columbus, because I moved to a great school system. Up here, they've got a great special ed program. Great. And our county has got a great services for kids with disabilities and adults with disabilities. And so once we've moved up here, we've been very lucky and very, very fortunate. I met some incredible people here. But down south, the school experience was just awful, Tom. It was just awful. It was a constant battle. And when it wasn't a battle, it was very expensive. And we were saved by those two places that allowed us to keep him moving forward. I mean, Parker can do basic math. He can read. He can spell. Now, he is helped by a memory. He memorizes everything, and he loves YouTube videos. He can tell you everything about power tools, lawnmowers, weed whackers, chainsaws that anybody ever wanted to know. And he memorizes all of that. The good side is if you lose your keys, you say, Parker, where are my keys? And he'll tell you. But he's, you know, he's does a lot of things that people didn't think he could because of the work of all these different people and all these different school systems.
And I'm watching you. I'm listening to you, Larry. It's like you, the love you have for him is it's an incredible thing to do. But it's like when you going back to when I talked about expectations. How do you alter your expectations when you wanted him to do certain things? I mean, how are you able to uh, work with him at his level?
We've always approached it, and we told his teachers that we didn't care about the grade. We didn't care about the level of work. We wanted to try everything. We just wanted to try it. If he was great, and if he's reading, let's 2-3 hours English, that's fine. Doesn't do math, fine. Let's just focus on what he's good at, strengths. And the older he got, we started focusing on life skills, how to tell time, be able to look at a clock and know what time it is. We're working with him now on how to use a credit card. He'll never be able to balance a checkbook or understand how all that works. But we want to be able to go out and use a card to buy something. We're working on learning to use a cell phone. I think it's all about celebrating the wins and celebrating the successes. I mean, and the world is so crazy and so wild. I mean, we spent many a day celebrating the fact that he had a good day at school. He just didn't have a meltdown. He went there all day. We didn't have to go get him early. Teacher didn't have to call us. That's a win, man. Let's have a party. Let's have a cupcake and a 7-Up, man. Let's have a party. And so that's kind of how we approach that. Now, the older you get, I will tell you, I mean, and that's why we're blessed with the family that we are blessed with, because as you get older and you have a special needs child, it weighs on your mind all the time. What's going to happen to them when you're gone?
Right.
And I don't have an answer for that, Tom. I really don't. I mean, we've got a plan, and I pray that the plan works, but you still worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're not getting any younger, so I mean, at some point, he doesn't understand that, right? He doesn't understand age and all that sort of stuff, right? He's 19, but he doesn't understand it, right?
No, he doesn't. He, like I don't ever travel anymore. He wants me here at the house. We have a pretty set routine. I mean, I can't tell you the last time Kay and we don't go on vacations by ourselves. I'd say once every 4 or 5 months, we'll slip off for a dinner by ourselves for an hour while a family watches him. But it's been the three of us for 17 years. We were fortunate. I think we were older when he came into our lives, so our expectations about things were different. But you're right. It's, he's Kay's nephew, and he's my son, and we view him as our son, and we love him with all of our hearts. And she's a typical Southern gal. She's going to take care of her family. I'm going to help her do it.
So because it's amazing because we've been texting back and forth, and it was like, oh, I have to do this with Parker. There's certain things. And I appreciate that. I'm not going to intrude on that, but I mean, what is it that you get home from work, a long day at work, and then your focus is Parker. What is that night like, or day like for you?
Well, when he goes to school, I go in and wake him up and lay down in the bed with him for 15-20 minutes, and we play with his stuffed animals and talk to them. Get him up, get him dressed. Kay does his breakfast, and then she gets him off on his transportation. When he comes home, Kay will feed him and make sure he's entertained and keep him safe. When I get home, I'll grab a quick bite, and then I hang out with him. It depends what Parker calls it dad time. I call it playtime. Tonight we play Yahtzee. Sometimes we play Uno. Sometimes we play Monopoly. Sometimes we watch Andy Griffith. He loves Andy Griffith, and just talk about his day or whatever he's interested in. And then he takes a shower, and then he goes to bed, and I lay down with him, and then I will lay down with him again a few more minutes before. And during the summer, when he's not in school, Kay is in a similar routine where she'll have to take him 3 or 4 times to lunch, and they'll plan the lunch, and Monday, Wednesday, and Friday they'll plan where they're going, and she'll have to take him shopping and take him to lunch, and it has to be a routine with him. We have a couple of vacation spots that we like to go to, and we've spent years training him to eat out. He can eat out at the finest restaurants now. It took a long time to get him to that point, but he can do it. But when we go to these places, he has to do his things. It's almost as if, okay, I have to swim, I have to bowl, and if I don't do those things first and early, no one's going to do anything else. And so we just kind of have to adapt, and we get his things in, and then we try to get him through the rest of it. He's a homebody. He likes to be here at the house. He's very comfortable at this place. And he's got all of his stuff here, and he likes his stuff. He loves to have family come and visit, and but he has to have a routine. He has to have things very similar. He's very comfortable in that. He doesn't like it when things aren't similar. He gets upset if Kay's gone getting her hair done too long, or if she's if the shopping trip takes too long. He likes to have us here.
So what happens when you do take him out in the public? I mean, because it's a different situation for him. How do you, as a parent, when I don't know how kids react to Parker or other parents react to Parker. I mean, how do you try to deal with that situation?
Well, we've been fortunate most of the time. People are good. They're good with Parker. And we go to the same restaurants a lot where they know him. We go to the same vacation spots a lot where they know him and become accustomed to him. We are very careful since he's gotten so large and older. Because if he has a meltdown, it can be a dramatic experience for somebody that's not seen it. And law enforcement, they could call law enforcement. So we manage things very carefully. We don't go to fairs, festivals, any of that. We don't take him. We deliberately avoid situations that could become unpleasant quickly. And we try to only go to situations that we know we can control for that very reason. I mean, we don't go to movies. The resorts we go to, we've been there several times. The restaurants, we know the owners. We go there several times. Like I said, we don't go out. We're not going to take Parker to the mall in Christmas, or we're not going to put him in a place where there's a lot of people, where there's an opportunity. We're not going to leave him by himself, where there's an opportunity that he could get into trouble. We manage all that very carefully.
One of the things I've always watched kids who are autistic in different levels and everything. I always wonder what the parents are thinking, because you're telling me all the things you try to avoid and all that sort of stuff. Do you feel like, I don't want to say I know it's not a burden. I know it's not. But I mean, you kind of feel like you've missed out on some things?
No, I really don't, Tom. I think the opposite. I think that I don't think I would have found my faith if it wasn't for Parker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I think we're doing what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've missed anything. I do feel sometimes that the other kids, you know, may have been slighted a little bit. You know, they may not get. I mean, because even though they're older, I mean, Kay talks to Christy almost every day and talks to Perry every couple of days. I mean, you're still even when they're adults, you're still very active in their lives. Um, and so I worry sometimes about that. But no, I don't think I've missed anything. Exactly the opposite. I think I have. I really think I'm a better, kinder person and have a better chance for the afterlife because of what I've gone through. I know it sounds silly and foolish, but I mean, when I was focused on my career, I was just, you know, focused. That was a good word. That's a polite word. It's a kind word,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you using that word.
Yeah.
And I can remember yesterday, like when you came down to Baton Rouge, seeing the focus Larry, as you call it,
Yeah.
and you know, that Larry's, you know, I'm not that Larry anymore. You know.
That's exhausting. Isn't it? That's exhausting.
So
I had
I don't know.
someone asked a question. It might have been Rebel. She said, "So you think there's a way to better teach the public so people can have more knowledge if presented with a situation they're not familiar with?"
Yeah, I really do. I think that, you know, when you see a special needs person working in a store, I think treating them like you would treat anyone else, acknowledging them, um, I think is critical. But I also think if you see some sort of special needs person behaving in a way that it's not normal or typical, you know, just not passing judgment, you know, and and just every person's different and different things impact everybody differently. You know, Parker does not like certain sounds or certain lights or certain situations. It creates a panic attack in him. It creates an uncontrollable desire to leave and get out of the situation. And it's overwhelming. It's beyond his ability to control it. You know, it's as if someone's chasing you with a club, a gun, or a knife. I mean, you lose all aspect of it. And so, you know, I go back to you can't ever judge. You know, it's the other thing. I know we're about out of time. I
Oh,
talked
okay.
about Kay's mother, about how I had passed judgment on her. If it wasn't for her, Parker would be dead.
Yep.
Um, you know, and so I learned, you and I talked about this. Our moms used to tell both of us, you don't say nothing bad or judge someone until you walk a mile in their shoes. I mean, our
Yep.
moms told, that's an Indiana mom statement.
Yep.
And I've now, you know, through Parker, learned the meaning of that because it's not my place to judge. And I think for the public, when you see something or you see someone, we should, especially today with social, just don't judge, you know, show compassion, show kindness. That will go so far instead of showing any sort of judgment, you know?
Oh, by the way, Rebel also said when I said that we're older than dirt, she reminded me that dirt is 450 million years old. So, yeah, yeah. Rebel has a habit of throwing those zingers in there, making sure that I say it's correct. But thanks,
That's
Rebel.
her
Appreciate that.
Louisiana showing, Tom. That's her Louisiana coming through.
Yeah, that's true. Um, yeah, we got a couple minutes now. Looking back on your life, you know, pre Parker and post Parker, where do you think that your life has changed the most?
I would say that I definitely have reconnected with God and have a faith that I didn't have before. I also think that I've accepted the reality of life a lot better. I mean, No matter how bad I wanted to be CEO of a company like Chase, the reality is I'm only going to go so far. And I've come to grips with that, I come to grips with a lot of things. So I think it's taught me to be a little calmer, to accept things, not be so wired and crazy. Um, I do think I do on the downside, you worry a lot. You worry about the other kids, they're typical, they're going to fall down. You're going to dust them off and hug them and send them back out there. With Parker, you're going to dust him off and you're going to protect him and you're going to fight the fight for him. It's a different approach. And you always wonder if you made the right decision. I mean, a long time ago, I had a good friend in West Virginia with a daughter that was born deaf. And he told me in a moment when he was having a tough time, he said, the hardest thing about kids with disabilities is you never know if you made the right decision or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a school decision. What school do I put him in? And so that's the tough part of it. You always are second guessing and questioning, did I do the right thing? Did I make the right decision? Because you make all kinds of decisions every day, all day, for these kids. Instead of helping them learn from their own decisions, you're actually making it for them.
Now, from the outset, at the beginning, when you did this, when you found out he had developmental issues, I mean, did you feel like you walked into something that you personally, based on your past experience or lack of experience of raising a child, do you feel like you're out of your league?
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do, Tom. I mean, I finally ran into something that I had no idea what to do. I couldn't run from it. I couldn't fix it. I didn't know what to do. I was lost. I just hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like, what do I do now?
And look at you now. You've got it all figured out, right? Yeah.
Well, we've at least given it a try.
Yeah. Give it the old Cub try.
That's right. I was going to say that too. So we're like the Cubs. We're trying.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we're going to talk for another hour about the Chicago Cubs, folks. So just stay with us. No, I'm just kidding. No, we have to end the show. I'm so sorry. Larry, I appreciate you so much coming on my show because I wanted to be able to focus on the Larry Thode that nobody knew about in school, or they knew you back in school, but they see you now. I hope the people from Penn listen to the show because they're going to see someone who is so inspirational, and I appreciate you more than you can imagine about you coming on my show to tell me about Parker. It's just incredible. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me, Tom. I'm honored. You're making a lot of changes in this world too, my friend. You're making it a better place every day.
Yeah, it's a challenge sometimes trying to find guests for my show, but doggone it, you popped up, and I said, let's do it, Larry. Let's do the show.
And we gave it the old Cubby try.
Yeah. Well, we got about a minute to go. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I just encourage everyone to learn about autism and spend a little time educating yourself because it impacts a lot of people, it impacts a lot of families.
Awesome. Great show, Larry. I wish we had more time, and hopefully you can make it to the reunion this year.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
Don't leave yet, but
Okay.
we're going to go ahead and sign off. And thanks, everyone, being on my show. And as I end all my shows, I want everyone to smile infectiously. And when I say all these things, I'm thinking of Parker. I'm thinking of Larry. I'm thinking of smile infectiously. Laugh genuinely, honestly, like Parker does. Love unconditionally, which is the most important thing about Parker. Love unconditionally. And the last thing is live courageously. I believe in all of you, and I hope you have a great week, and I hope life is showing you true blessings every single day. So have a great week, folks.